I wanted to start first by just saying how incredibly proud I am of my organization, of this company, for the commitment that we made. And this is a session on business commitments to sustainability. And the commitment that we made that led into the pilot project, I'm so incredibly proud of the way that we took a leadership position, that we had a stretch goal without knowing exactly how we were going to meet it. And then I'm really, really proud about the approach that the organization took and how we were willing to really be, as we said, multi-stakeholder, really work with everybody, take the feedback, not have a destination in mind. So when I go through this, and then of course I'm also really proud as a Canadian that when McDonald's looked and they could have taken this pilot project anywhere in the world, that the systems that we had in place here, the commitments from the industry, the leadership that was already demonstrated here, really made this the natural fit for that. So given the fact that I could talk for hours about this project, I thought one of the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to start out with a video that we did that sort of tried to encapsulate the whole journey that we went on for the pilot. And I'm glad that Bob just snuck in the room, because it seems anytime I'm doing stuff, I have a video that includes him as a star in it. So it's good that he's here to do that. So I'm going to do this first, and then hopefully I will be able to speed it up at the end.
People want to know that their food is produced in a safe, humane, and environmentally sustainable manner.
Beef is core to our business, and it's also really important to our customers. Beef is also a significant part of our environmental footprint. So when you look across all three of those sectors, it seemed pretty clear that McDonald's should support the sustainable development of beef production.
When McDonald's launched the Sustainable Beef Pilot Project, we set out to accomplish three main objectives. First, to begin purchasing a portion of our beef from verified sustainable sources in 2016. Second, to take the principles and criteria from the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef and bring them to life through a locally relevant, outcomes-based initiative. And finally, to support and accelerate the development of an industry-led beef sustainability framework.
There's so many variables of what people think sustainable beef means to them. But I think for us, after going through the program, it's raising and producing efficient beef, and it's using our own practices that creates the least impact on the environment.
We spoke to a lot of ranchers, we spoke to a lot of leaders all around the world, and the Canadian industry was really motivated to be transparent, and they wanted to improve, and we wanted to partner with that.
The people at McDonald's had made this commitment, and they were in essence asking us how to make it work. So if you get a chance to write your own destiny on something like this, you better jump at the chance. When you've got the world's biggest food retailer asking how do we do this, it's kind of a no-brainer.
I feel really good about what I do. I'm very proud to show people this place and our practices, and I love the concept of proving myself to the public. I love those challenges where maybe my score could be higher, and that it pushes me to look at those parts of our operation and learn from it and do better going forward. It's important to me, I guess, for looking into the future.
The McDonald's Canadian pilot is a really big deal for us and for everyone in the industry. It's been the first in the world where we've adapted the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef principles and criteria and adapted it into a real-world situation. What happens in Canada and how you raise cattle and beef in Canada is very different to a Brazilian farmer. It's very different to a Central Queensland farmer in Australia. It's very different to an Irish farmer. And so that's why that local adaptation is so important.
The timeline of the pilot started in January 2014, when McDonald's announced their plan for the Sustainable Beef Pilot Project to take place in Canada. We then assembled a project management team to manage the key elements of the pilot, including stakeholder engagement, communications, indicator development, on-farm verifications and reporting, chain of custody, and additional synergistic initiatives. The development of the indicators was a huge focus for this project, as we knew they needed to uniquely address all the key segments of the Canadian supply chain, including ranchers, backgrounders, feedlot operators, and processors. Gathering insights from stakeholders through ongoing dialogue, the indicators went through more than 150 revisions based on input from an advisory board and representatives from ranching, feedlot, processing, retail, food service, academia, non-governmental organizations, government, and industry associations.
We worked for several months with the advisory board to develop the first set of indicators. And after we were comfortable with them, we then put together a beta test group of producers so that we could get out on their ranches, in their feedlots, in their backgrounding operations to test those indicators. We worked with the verifiers from Where Food Comes From on site to test them. And it was over a couple-month period of time that we were able to get some really good feedback.
Each pilot participant received a confidential verification report from Where Food Comes From that included high-level verifier comments tied to each indicator score. Each participant also received a benchmark report that compared their performance to that of their peers within the same segment of the value chain. Chain of custody refers to the process used to track cattle from the ranches where they are born through the beef supply chain to the processing plants where they are harvested. The project management team partnered with BIX to confidentially analyze the chain of custody of cattle from birth to harvest. BIX then generated monthly reports to show how many cattle could be tracked through a fully verified sustainable supply chain into the two verified packers, Cargill and JBS, that supply McDonald's verified Cargill patty plant in Spruce Grove, Alberta. From the outset, the project management team enlisted leaders across the Canadian beef community to serve as thought partners during the pilot's development and to help educate their broader peer groups about the pilot and the value of a Canadian beef sustainability framework. A total of 33 workshops and presentations were hosted, directly reaching 3,200 beef community stakeholders. We also tapped into the power of social media to share the story of the pilot, which generated nearly 90,000 total impressions across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
McDonald's Canada has a really long history of working collaboratively with the industry here, so we like to listen and learn from them. That engagement with the industry has been critical to the success of the pilot and will be critical to our success of our sustainable sourcing going forward.
So as the McDonald's pilot comes to a close and we transition over to the GRSB, what we're really wanting to see from the GRSB is continuing leadership and making sure that they not only do they lead, but they have to listen. And they've got to do it in a collaborative approach and bring everyone along in the community. All stakeholders need to be involved in this. It's too important to get wrong.
The GRSB is really thankful for the McDonald's project because it's really created the framework that we needed to be able to advance our industry as a whole down this path of sustainable beef. When you've got all parties at the table learning and understanding at the same time, I've never seen our industry work better together than I have through this pilot project.
We've been working with the Canadian ranchers on the pilot, and they have been just awesome. So we want to continue supporting the pilot in Canada and look forward to the future development there, and then taking those best practices and sharing them around the world to continue in all the areas of the world where we do business.
The pilot was wrapped up on June 1st in Calgary when McDonald's hosted more than 300 beef community stakeholders and pilot participants to celebrate the success of the pilot. Discuss the outcomes achieved through the pilot and look ahead to what is coming from the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef regarding plans for sustainable beef production into the future.
So it's a bit long, but I think it gives you a sense of really how complex this process was. And it really, from the outset, this wasn't let's have a marketing claim and then develop something that we can put behind it. It was really to do what it said there, develop this project, work with industry, producers. And so there's just a few slides I want to reiterate and take a little bit more time, since this is a case study, to really key in on some of the objectives that we had and some of the reasons that we focused on them. So again, these are the three headline things. And for us, of course, the first thing was that we made a commitment to begin purchasing a portion of our beef from verified sustainable sources in 2016. Bringing the principles at the GRSB that you all here know so well, bringing them to life in a locally relevant way. So understanding that that was kind of the point of the global roundtable, is to set these higher level stuff and then have the in-country roundtables take those and develop the indicators and the processes that made sense for them. And then to support and accelerate things like the Canadian Roundtable, as well as other initiatives that were going on too. We wanted to play, again, that collaborative role, that leadership role, but not telling people where to go, but just helping facilitate that. And really, some of the key things about how we structured the pilot, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but it's really critical, and I always put it first. It's multi-stakeholder. It was bringing everybody around. It was lovely to hear Sherry be so complimentary this morning, but one of the things I think she focused on was that we were completely transparent. Anybody could be part of the process for us. We wanted as many people around the table as possible. It was the way for us to make sure that it was robust, that we were getting everybody's perspective, that we weren't missing a section out, that we included dairy, we included other aspects of the value chain as well. Indicator development, you saw that. My favorite thing is that I think illustrates it is that the indicators went through more than 150 revisions, and I think that really speaks to the fact that we didn't come in and say, we've got a set of indicators, now we're going to sell the industry on, we've got the right ones, this is how you should do it. It was, here's the first set, tell us what's wrong, tell us what can be better, tell us how we can make it more impactful, and we changed them, and changed them, and changed them, and changed them, and changed them 154 times in the end. So they're still not perfect, nothing ever is, but I think it just speaks to that collaborative approach that we took, that I mentioned, that I was really proud of how we took that on. And then chain of custody, the working with BICS, which was just such incredible partners for us, really taking that's really the linchpin, the key element of our ability to then go back and make a credible claim or talk credibly to consumers about that, is that we actually have a way to track the cattle all the way from birth to burger through the whole value chain, and be able to say in the end, this is how we know. It's not because we're pretty sure, or we think, or Bob told me. It's that we have this data, we have a really robust system. And then initiatives. I mentioned we worked with dairy, we worked with youth beef clubs, we worked with a lot of people to really say, we're here, we're doing all this work, let's work together and see where we can go. I basically covered this, the role of the global roundtable, and then the role of the local ones, and how we hopefully brought that together through the pilot. I think one of the things too is what we learned as we were going through this process is there's a lot of indicators you can look at, whether you're looking globally or looking locally, but some of them really are more important than others. So when you're looking at things like animal health and welfare, natural resources, some of those things are not nice to haves, they're must haves, where there's some other things that are really nice to have, and if you have the opportunity in your operation to do those things, that's great, and let's get credit for that, but maybe you don't have those opportunities, so you shouldn't be shut out or said you're not sustainable because you can't do these couple of things. So we really worked closely with a lot of stakeholders, including the advisory board, to drive through for those three different segments and say, really, what are the critical ones? So you can see there how many indicators we had and then which ones were critical. I'm waiting so you can take the picture. You were helpful with the video, so I'm going to wait for you. And then the verification aspect, of course, is so critical, and having where food comes from, which again were incredible partners for us, and really took this on with a level of energy that was really required to do this amount of work in this short of time. But again, feedback that we got from the advisory board and others, when we first looked at this, we thought, I don't know, scoring people and saying you're doing better than someone else, what is it? Are we really in that position to do that? But the feedback was, you can't just have a black and white. It can't be everybody is or isn't, or you're going to end up with something that doesn't seem very robust and is not very credible to talk to. So we worked to develop this scale and put some verbiage behind it. And again, where food comes from was really critical in helping us get to this place. And so again, you go to that bottom stuff, there are just some things you can't do. So there's some barriers to entry. It's the same thing that the Canadian Roundtable is looking at as they develop their verification process too. There's just some things things that are no-go. Then there are other things where, again, there's opportunities that you have or not, and so you can have a scoring mechanism, and we can talk more about that in detail, but it gives people a sense, and you heard Stephen Hughes on the video talk about getting that and really being energized about how he could improve his score the next time, and that's one of the things I think we learned is we at the outset didn't intend to tell people this is how to do better. It was really just to benchmark and get a sense of how a system like this could work. But almost every single person who went through the verification process came back and said, great, I've got my score. Now, where's the document where you tell me how I can do better on this? And so that was a learning for us along the way that producers are really, really eager to do better all the time. We've got BICs in the room too, so there's questions about how exactly the chain of custody work. We've got experts certainly better versed than I. But again, I want to hit on the really critical element for us that we had to have to go all the way from, as I said, birth to burger and be tracking it all along. That's the credibility, that's the crux, that's the key point that lets us go to consumers and say this is how we know. And again, the team at BICS, I mean, we pushed them, as they would probably attest to, pretty strongly along the way, and they really exceeded expectations at every step and delivered something in the end, I think, that is not only a huge value to us, but as I think a lot of you are seeing now, is a huge value to the Canadian industry and beyond. So in the end, this was a success, right? This was a huge effort. We had 121 cow, calf, and backgrounders verified, 20 feedlots, the 2 packers that we source from, and the patty plant in Spruce Grove. And what that gave us in the end was 8,967 head from a fully verified supply chain. So were there lots more cattle involved along the process? Yes. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands more, hundreds of thousands more, that were involved in it at different aspects. But again, going back to the BICs and that credibility of tracking, if there happened to be a feedlot or it happened to be one of those steps that didn't happen to go through the verification, we're not counting that in the end. So again, going back to how are you credible, how are you knowing what you're doing, it's following those processes. And then these are really the general lessons that when we talked as a team at the end, what did we really learn beyond all the detailed stuff? What were the broad strokes that we learned? And I really think these 3 encapsulate it nicely, and it's leading but listening. So McDonald's always wants to play, and I think you've seen it's the same as Cargill. I mean, we were there before the GRSB was the GRSB. We've always tried to play a proactive and leadership role across all the commodities that we source. But I think we do it with listening at the same time. So we don't, bull in a china shop. We don't rush in and say, we've got to get this done in 2 years. We come in and say, let's get it done right. And the part of that, too, is building community. So again, that multi-stakeholder, that collaborative approach, coming in, working with people, understanding everybody's different aspects and how to bring those together and then move everybody forward. And then really, not a surprise, but championing progress over perfection, which is so key in so many things, but really was for us in the pilot. At some point, we could have had, forget 154 versions, we could still be redoing versions today. Now we've got the sustainability assessment. We would have rejigged a bunch of those after digesting that too. So really focusing and championing progress over perfection and moving on from there. And with that, I'll just point everybody to this website, which has the full report, which has an incredible amount of detail. Anybody involved in the industry in any way is going to get a lot out of just looking at that. There's profiles on there of our participants. There's videos. It's a really great website for that.